I knew something was wrong the moment I saw the cake. It didn't say, "Congratulations, Arya," like the mock-up HR had shown me on Tuesday. It said, "Welcome VP Talia," in a swirling, garish font that looked like it had been piped by a kindergartner on a sugar rush. My name wasn't anywhere, not on the balloons, not in the group chat invite, not in the cheesy slideshow looping on the flat screen with its terrible royalty-free elevator music. There was only Talia. Talia with the perfectly curled hair, a 3-month-old company badge, and a resume full of nothing but good vibes. 8 years. 8 years I had poured into this place, bled for it. I held it together through the 2017 platform migration debacle, the 2020 remote work data crisis, and Mark's annual whiskey-fueled breakdown at the client retreat. And now I was standing there with a paper plate of store-bought cake, watching Mark beam as if he had just solved world hunger by hiring a TikTok influencer with a business minor. I felt my stomach clench, not because of the betrayal, though that sucker punched me right in the gut, but because I still had that damn thank you speech in my purse, folded, highlighted, and practiced in the mirror, like some fool who still believed in merit. Mark cleared his throat and tapped his glass, as if he were proposing at a family barbecue. "Let's raise a glass to new beginnings," he said, that smug grin twitching at the corner of his mouth. "Talia, we're thrilled to have you stepping into this role. You've brought such fantastic energy to the team. Energy, meaning 300,000 followers and an authentic personal brand that once reviewed coffee makers on a morning show." I felt every eye shift toward me. Even the interns looked like they'd swallowed a thumbtack, but I didn't flinch. I smiled. It was the kind of smile you practice when your ex shows up to your family reunion with his new girlfriend, wearing your old necklace. I clinked my glass against Talia's and said, "To leadership," and drank the whole thing. The party continued in a way. I floated through it like a ghost, accepting hollow hugs and muttered apologies from people who had been hyping me up all month. Mark pretended not to notice the shift in the mood, and Talia, she was too busy uploading an Instagram reel with the caption, "Manifestation works. Boss life, #level up." She actually winked at me as she hit publish, as if we were in on the same joke. I should be proud. She'd leapfrogged me into a title I spent a decade grinding for. By the time the fake cheer had fizzled out and the champagne flutes were empty, I had already made a decision. No tears, no scene, no dramatic exit. But oh, they were going to feel it, every last one of them. I went home with the speech still folded in my purse. I didn't even take a cupcake. I just sat in the back of my ride, staring out the window, letting the ache settle into something colder and sharper. By midnight, I had opened my laptop. I didn't rage type. I sorted. I archived. I printed. I created a folder labeled Monday. Because Mark might have handed my title to a hashtag, but I was about to hand him something with a lot more bite. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't even pour myself a drink, which, if you know me, is saying a lot. I just sat at my kitchen table, still in my party dress, heels kicked off, hair pinned up as if I was still holding it all together. The house was dead quiet, except for the hum of the fridge and the distant bark of my neighbor's tiny dog. The first thing I did was check Talia's Instagram, like a masochist, and there it was, a filtered shot of her holding that champagne flute, mid-toast, with that big, dopey grin, and a caption that read, "Hard work pays off. VP life begins. Promoted, #women in biz, #rising. I could have bitten through glass. Instead, I clicked save on the post, not out of spite, but for evidence. That caption would come in handy, like the online equivalent of a fingerprint on a murder weapon. Then I opened my company laptop. The first folder I went to was Client Contracts, Legacy Archive. I had managed those relationships for years. The back end of Aura Dynamics ran on people no one else even knew by name. That analyst in Houston who saved our entire West Coast data ops when the server farm threatened to go down? I sent him a holiday card and negotiated his retainer. I didn't just know the systems, I was the architect. I pulled every master agreement I had touched. I downloaded clean PDFs, saved them to a fresh, encrypted drive. My initials were all over these files, my sign-offs, my hand-built data pipelines and custom clauses. Some of them, especially with our international data partners, had appendices, only I had the password to decrypt. Then came the expense reports, marks to be exact. I had a folder going since one called, "We'll see," not because I expected to use it, but just as insurance. He had always been sloppy, charging a 1-100 steak dinner to vendor onboarding when I knew for a fact he had been in Aspen. Duplicated Uber charges, spa services logged as client entertainment. There were even foot rubs labeled ergonomic wellness consulting. And I'm not even joking. I copied them all. By Saturday afternoon, I was in full command center mode. I had already reviewed the non-disclosure matrix, confirming my NDAs didn't prevent me from working in the same sector post-resignation. Aura Dynamics never gave me equity or a golden parachute, but what they did give me was access and a mountain of leverage. Talia had no idea how deep this ran. She probably thought running analytics meant delegating and reposting inspirational quotes. The girl once asked me during a staff meeting if we still had to physically enter data. She didn't know the entire compliance chain was still half paper. She didn't know where the skeletons were because she didn't even know where the closets were. By Sunday morning, I drafted 3 versions of my resignation letter, each more surgical than the last. I wrote one that was professional and short. One that included bullet points on strategic failures I'd patched without acknowledgement, and one where I called Mark a cocktail napkin in a tailored suit. I deleted that last one. Midway through organizing my files, I came across an old email thread with Ethan Cole. A decade ago, he was a mid-level project lead at a data startup we partnered with. These days, he ran Cole and Hartwell Capital, and if LinkedIn was to be believed, he was currently looking to invest in a B2B analytics platform with senior operational talent. I flagged it. Then I booked a flight for Monday at 6:15 a.m. I didn't rage, didn't spiral. I made a plan. Every folder was labeled, every thread was backed up. By Sunday night, the only thing left to do was hit send. Let Mark have his VP Barbie and her glitter captions. I was taking the plumbing. The email went out at exactly 8:55 a.m., time to hit just before the weekly ops check-in, right as the caffeine was kicking in and before anyone could raise the red flag. It was short, surgical, no rant, no drama, no passive-aggressive barbs. Just 3 paragraphs of closure that read like a resignation and felt like a confession from someone who already knew the fallout was coming. Subject: formal resignation. To Mark, HR. Legal. Effective immediately, I will be resigning from my position at Aura Dynamics. I appreciate the opportunities I've had to contribute to the company over the last 8 years and am grateful for the professional relationships built along the way. I am unavailable for transition or follow-up, and I trust the leadership team is well-positioned to move forward. All relevant documentation has been archived and remains accessible via my department's shared drive. Aria D. Whitaker. Simple. Clean. A scalpel, not a sword. And by the time Mark's forehead vein popped reading it, I was already somewhere above Texas, midair, with the window blind cracked just enough to let in a sliver of gray morning light. No laptop, no work phone, just me, a neck pillow, and a business-class Bloody Mary. Because hell yes, I booked it on miles. The flight attendant asked me what I was headed out for. I told her a meeting, which wasn't a lie. Ethan Cole's assistant had confirmed the lunch reservation the night before. Private dining room, old steakhouse downtown? The same Ethan Cole who once nearly tanked a $4 million rollout until I stepped in, without being asked, mind you, and rebuilt the project plan from the ground up. He had never forgotten that. In fact, he'd sent me a bottle of scotch afterward with a note that just said, "You saved our ass." He owed me at least a conversation, and if things went the way I hoped, he would do more than just talk. Back in the Aura Dynamics office, chaos was starting to bubble. I imagine it unfolded like a slow-burn horror film. Mark, sipping his green smoothie, swaggering into his corner office. Talia, vlogging her first real day in a structured blazer and ring light glow. Then, ping! Mark reads the subject line. Reads it again. Arya resigned? He probably asked loud enough for nearby cubicles to hear. Cue the panic shuffle. HR digging into the shared drives, legal forwarding the email to each other with cautious emojis. Talia, blissfully unaware, was still posting a reel of her writing Big Meeting Day on a whiteboard in pink expo marker. Mark tried calling twice, then once more on WhatsApp, as if I would pick up just because the ringtone was different. I watched the calls roll in from the screen of my personal phone, face down on the tray table while I tore into airline eggs with all the joy of a woman who no longer had to pretend Mark's quarterly vision decks weren't copied straight from management consulting blogs. The best part? I knew they didn't know what I had taken. Not files, not trade secrets. Just me. My knowledge. My scaffolding. The people who trusted me. The systems only I could untangle because I was the one who duct taped them together in the first place. Talia could sit in the chair, but she didn't even know where the light switches were. The plane hit a little turbulence and I sipped my drink without flinching. I wasn't worried. Monday was just getting started. By 10:13 a.m., Aura Dynamics was wheezing like a busted vacuum cleaner stuck under a couch. Talia had walked in that morning wearing a power suit 2 sizes too ambitious and a smile like she'd just won a social media award. She sat in my old chair, though God knows she probably thought it was new, and fired off a Slack message to Team Ops asking everyone to drop their wins from last week. #flex, #sparkles. Bless her. The first thing to break was the client data pipeline. She tried to move a standing data sync to Thursday to better align with her spin class schedule. The whole nested task chain collapsed like a drunk Jenga tower. 48 client dashboards vanished from view. 2 resupply shipments got tagged with conflicting barcodes and ended up halfway to Montana. At 11:02 a.m., a call came in from Michael, one of our legacy warehouse vendors in Michigan. Michael didn't tolerate nonsense. He once chewed out an intern for putting K in an email. He asked for clarification on new load times. Talia said, "I'll circle back once I've circled in," whatever the hell that meant. He hung up mid-sentence and CC'd Mark with the subject line, "Amateurs running ops." The back-end system, custom-built years ago by a half-dead dev shop we could never afford to replace, began locking up every time Talia tried to access routing tables. See, the thing was, I never broke protocol. I didn't hoard passwords or hide files. But the system was finicky, held together by code duct tape and my sheer stubbornness. You had to know it, and no one else had ever bothered to learn. Mark tried to demand access. The IT guy pulled up the logs. No flags, no hoarding. Everything was technically compliant. But when they tried to hand over admin privileges, the tech guy actually said, "We'll need time." Arya was the only one who ever understood how this thing breathed. By noon, the Monday operations call was in freefall. Talia opened with a chirpy, "Hey, team!" By minute 7, she was sweating through her silk blouse. She couldn't explain the West Coast scheduling bug, couldn't interpret the quarterly metrics dashboard. She called the vendor trust matrix a vibe alignment chart at one point. She actually said, "Let's just flow with it." People started dropping off the call like lemmings. Jessica from procurement sent me a text that just read, "WTF is happening?" I didn't reply. I was sitting across from Ethan Cole, eating steak tips and sipping a Cabernet that cost more than Talia's outfit, watching Mark's missed calls pile up like sad digital dominoes on my lock screen. By 2:00 p.m., someone finally noticed that our customs pre-clearance forms for 2 shipments due in Baltimore were missing timestamps. That was my system, my checklist. And now, it was gone. Mark stormed into IT, demanding a systems audit. They told him everything had been backed up. The problem was, those backups were designed by me, labeled in my shorthand, stored in folders with names like burn after reading. In Mark's panic, they were there, but not for them. Talia, meanwhile, tried to pull together a pep email. Just a reminder, she wrote, the best leaders rise during storms. Keep shining, fam. Light flex, sparkles. We got this. By then, someone had started a private Slack thread titled Vpocalypse. I didn't create it, but I was invited, and I smiled. Not because I wanted Aura Dynamics to burn, but because they had built the whole thing on my spine and thought they could rip it out without the body going limp. Mark had the title, Talia had the seat, but I had the map. I turned off my phone after that. Let them marinate. Some lessons need to be learned without interruption. Tuesday morning started quiet. Too quiet for a company whose usual routine involved a dozen half-panicked emails by 9:15 and at least one marked temper tantrum before the second coffee run. But then 9:32 hit. That's when Mark realized there were no emails from Omnicore Logistics, no PO confirmations, no Slack messages. Nothing. Omnicore was one of our longest-standing partners, industrial distribution, high volume, high demand, high maintenance. They once sent Aura Dynamics a fruit basket after a backlog we cleared in under 24 hours. And now, dead silence. Then came Global Reach Solutions, our biggest SaaS client. Big money, global reach. Their Tuesday sync was as regular as clockwork. Canceled with no explanation. Mark started sweating in a way only men in tailored dress shirts do, where it stains from the spine outward, like a crime scene. He called Joanne from Enterprise Accounts. She hadn't heard from them either. I'm still waiting on a confirmation, she said, her voice tight. This isn't normal. By 10:07, he'd initiated the internal thread titled, Alert, Key Clients Unresponsive. It pinged every director-level staff member with the kind of urgency normally reserved for lawsuits or when the Wi-Fi goes down during quarterly earnings. And then, just after 11, someone from sales dropped a bomb in the thread. Ethan Cole just posted a lunch pic with Aria Whitaker and 2 Omnicore execs. Tag. Fresh starts. Strategic growth. Mark's pulse probably skipped 3 beats. He clicked the link. There I was, centered in the frame, hair down, blazer sharp, holding a glass of white wine, and looking like I'd never heard of Aura Dynamics in my life. No Aura logos, no confidential intel. Just lunch. A new beginning. Did she take anything? Someone typed into the email thread. Are we protected under non-compete? Another added. Should we involve legal? Legal chimed in 15 minutes later. Their message was a punch to the gut wrapped in velvet. At this time, there's no indication, miss. Whitaker has violated any contractual obligations. She exited cleanly, gave appropriate notice, and maintained compliance with IP and non-solicitation protocols. Recommend caution before pursuing formal action. Translation. She played you by the book. Talia tried to downplay it in the leadership group chat, something about how competitors will always try to poach, but our culture is what keeps people loyal. No one responded for a solid hour. Meanwhile, Omnicore's rep declined our meeting reschedule with a cold, 2-word reply. No need. Global Reach Solutions emailed Mark directly with a vague note. We've been evaluating other partnerships for strategic alignment. Appreciate the relationship to date. Strategic alignment. That's corporate for, we're out, and you won't get the chance to fix it. Mark spent the afternoon pacing like a zoo animal. He told Talia to be visible and sent her to do a walk-around on the office floor like she was some kind of panicked mascot. He asked AT to check server logs. They showed nothing. No suspicious downloads, no file transfers. I'd archived what needed archiving and nothing more. Not a single pixel out of place, because I didn't need their files. I was the file. Every late-night call, every workaround, every nuance in vendor behavior or client redline, I remembered it. the human infrastructure they never valued until the lights flickered. And now they were stumbling through the dark, wondering how the house collapsed with no warning. But it wasn't sudden. It was planned, silently, precisely, like a light switch flipped by the only person who knew where it was. It started with a folder labeled Q2 Reports Archive, Final, that mysteriously began circulating through the company Slack late Wednesday afternoon. No one knew who uploaded it, no one asked, but everyone clicked. Inside was a buffet of Mark's greatest hits. A line item for client dinner, the Capitol Grill, $1,240. The attached receipt showed 2 Wagyu steaks, 3 bottles of expensive wine, and a $300 cigar flight from a cigar lounge in Miami. The problem? We don't have any clients in Miami. Another, for transportation to strategic offsite, had an Uber receipt showing a pickup at a bar in Tribeca and a drop-off at a hotel in Brooklyn, time-stamped 2:14 a.m. The passenger name was redacted, but the driver comment read, "Pickup was drunk and didn't tip." Then came the kicker. An entire week labeled Client Development, Confidential, that coincided with Mark's now infamous bender in Tulum. There were beachfront massages, poolside cocktail service, even a jet ski rental, all logged as wellness networking. By 3:17 p.m., HR had opened a formal investigation. An anonymous email had landed in their inbox with the subject line, "Suggestion: Audit Mark's reimbursements." The body simply read, "Start with Q2. Compare it to the corporate card feed. Good luck." Someone screenshotted the notification and posted it in the private Slack thread, Vpocalypse. That thread had over 40 members now. And while Mark was upstairs pretending to be busy, Talia was downstairs, messing up a client call. She had taken point on a pitch to Vertex Analytics, an old, proud client that Arya Whitaker had personally onboarded back in the 4 spreadsheets and a handshake days. The ask was simple: renew at their legacy pricing with a slight increase. Easy money. But Talia, in all her ring light glory, opened the call by quoting the new pricing tier without the grandfathered discount. She didn't notice the tone shift. She didn't clock the silence. She just kept going, chipper as a Girl Scout on commission. The Vertex rep stopped her mid-slide and said, "That's a 38% increase over our agreement. Arya assured us that wouldn't happen." Talia blinked. "Who's Arya?" The call ended 2 minutes later. By 4:06, Vertex Analytics had emailed a formal request to review their exit options. Back upstairs, Mark was in his office with the door shut and the blinds down, a rare move that everyone knew meant one thing: damage control. He was on the phone with legal, with HR, with someone at accounting, trying to plug a dam that was cracking by the second. But his voice, normally a confident drone, sounded strained, panicked. He came out only once, to bark at Talia in front of everyone. "Why didn't you verify the legacy pricing?" She turned red, then pale, then red again. No one gave me a list." "You didn't ask," he snapped, and then stormed off. The room fell into that weird kind of silence that sticks to the walls even after the sound leaves. People weren't just gossiping anymore. They were watching, studying, smelling the rot under the drywall. I imagine Mark sat at his desk that night and opened that Slack folder. He saw his own name on receipts he barely remembered. He realized that someone, somewhere, had been keeping score, that the quiet woman he publicly skipped over for a VP promotion might have walked out the front door, but didn't leave empty-handed. And for the first time in years, I bet he realized what it felt like to be exposed. No titles to hide behind, no glittery LinkedIn posts, just cracks. Cracks in the foundation, spidering faster with every passing hour. And I was only getting started. The meeting with Ethan Cole was supposed to be a formality, just a lunch catch-up, maybe a few ideas scribbled on a napkin. But by the time we'd ordered our second round of espresso martinis, he slid a leather folio across the table and said, "We don't want to hire you. We want to unleash you." Inside, A job offer with no job title. Your role, he said, grinning, is whatever breaks the most ground. Strategist? Closer? Assassin. You'll hunt, design, sabotage, and build better systems in the ashes. No org chart, no red tape, no marks. The base salary was already more than I'd made at Aura Dynamics after 8 years of loyalty raises. The bonus structure? Let's just say the ink hadn't even dried on my NDA, and I already had enough to cover a lake house and the therapy bills it would require. My first assignment, Aura Dynamics' upcoming expansion into the Pacific Northwest, a key market Cole and Hartwell had their eyes on. The same region where Aura Dynamics planned to muscle in with legacy pricing and deadweight processes. Ethan wanted to go lean, fast, and sharp. They're already laying down rail, he said, but no one's watching the switches. That's where you come in. I didn't blink. I made a list on the flight back, not just of clients, but of people. People still at Aura Dynamics who were brilliant, overlooked, or just quietly miserable. The ones who stayed late, fixed the bugs, and held the walls up while Mark presented their ideas with his name on the slide deck. Jessica in logistics, Leo from pricing, the intern who coded an auto-inventory tool I once saved from being deleted. I remembered them all, and they remembered me. The first call was tentative. Jessica. She answered on the third ring and said, "Please tell me you're building something." "I'm building something better," I said. She joined a week later. Then came Leo. Then a ripple effect. People who had been waiting not for permission, but for proof that leaving wouldn't mean starting over. That there was life after Mark, after Aura Dynamics. I wasn't a martyr anymore. I was a magnet. Aura Dynamics had spent years teaching me how not to lead. Now I was using every lesson against them. Better vendor tools, real-time analytics. No bloated chains of approval or death by PowerPoint status updates. Just speed, clarity, and execution. I even bought Talia's personal domain name, which she hadn't secured, and redirected it to a landing page that said, "Out of office indefinitely." Petty, maybe, but satisfying, like ice water on a sunburn. The confidence didn't come back all at once. It arrived in increments, the way I stood in a meeting, the way men twice my age shut up when I pulled up a spreadsheet, the way Ethan looked at me, not like a gamble, but like a guarantee. I was different now. Not angry, not wounded, just sharpened. Mark had bet on image. I bet on infrastructure. He wanted fireworks. I was building a pipeline, and now, for the first time in 8 years, I wasn't a name on someone else's org chart. I was the threat in their strategy memo, the unforeseen competitor, the ghost in the market they thought they owned, and I hadn't even launched yet. The boardroom was silent, except for the faint hum of the air conditioning and the clink of a trembling water glass as Mark tried to swallow his pride along with his panic. 12 chairs, 11 furious faces, and one empty one, supposedly reserved for the new VP of operations. But Talia hadn't shown up yet, probably because she was too busy damage controlling the PR nightmare that erupted the night before when her boss babe TikTok went viral for all the wrong reasons. The video, her bragging about leveling up fast in a male-dominated industry while mispronouncing a key term, had become meme fuel. The comments were brutal. Even the interns were sharing it with crying laugh emojis. Across the conference table, Aura Dynamics' largest investor leaned back in his chair and asked, with ice in his voice, "Mark, how the hell did this happen?" Mark tried to smile. It looked more like a twitch. "We faced unexpected attrition and, client recalibrations," he stammered. "Market disruption has played a role, but we're stabilizing." Someone cleared their throat. Another board member tapped a laptop and connected to the projector. A slide appeared on the wall, a clean, simple performance chart, The line climbed slowly, steadily, with a few plateaus. Then, 2 weeks ago, a sharp drop. A flat line. The date was circled. It was the day I resigned. No one said a word. Then came the next slide. Cole and Hartwell's press release. COO, appointment, Aria Whitaker. Mark audibly swallowed. I thought you said she wasn't a flight risk, one director muttered. She wasn't, Mark insisted, his hands rising. She was loyal. For 8 years. She was a lifer. The room flinched at the word. Loyalty isn't permanent, another board member snapped. It's earned, maintained. You had her running your company for over a decade while you played dress-up CEO and padded your expense reports with mojitos and cigars. Someone else chimed in. 2 legacy clients gone. 3 key staffers walked. 1 internal investigation into financial misconduct. Oh, and the Pacific Northwest expansion? Dead in the water. You know why? Everyone turned as the next slide loaded. A Cole and Hartwell marketing teaser. Coming soon. Infrastructure reimagined. The logo shimmered against a deep navy background. Mark finally lost whatever was left of his grip. This is a coordinated hit. She's sabotaging us. She had to take files, contacts. She's poisoning the well. Legal, seated quietly at the end of the table, lifted their head. No violations on record. Every interaction was above board. He didn't take anything, a beat. She just left. Talia arrived 20 minutes late, sunglasses on, with hickeys from public opinion all over her reputation. She sat down silently as someone slid a folder toward her. Your quarterly review, said the director. She didn't open it. Mark wiped his forehead and looked down the table like a drowning man searching for a rope, but the only thing coming was a motion to review executive leadership. The meeting ended with 0 claps, no handshakes, no jokes. Just chairs scraping, and the quiet realization that Aura Dynamics' future had walked out 2 weeks ago with a smile and a carry-on. And now she was thriving. That afternoon, I did a press interview, part of our launch campaign for the new division. Clean backdrop, clean lines, confidence without apology. The final question was expected but delicious. Anything you'd like to say to your former employer? I smiled, just enough for it to sting. Maybe next time, I said. They'll know who not to underestimate. The story of Aria is a powerful reminder that true value is not found in a title or a company's approval, but in the skills, knowledge, and integrity you bring to your work. When you are the one holding the foundation together, your absence will be louder than any applause. Don't be afraid to walk away from a place that doesn't see your worth. Invest in yourself, build your own legacy, and remember that loyalty is a two-way street. The best revenge isn't tearing something down, but building something so much better that you never have to look back. Your quiet dedication is your greatest power.